offering is the truth. Nothing more. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Debunking Professor DUMBdave. Today we're going to be debunking challenge number 9, which is not really a challenge at all, but we're going to go ahead and entertain the thought.
This time I'd like to offer some challenges to you remaining few that are desperately clinging to this dying fad to derive some semblance of self-worth. Let's call them 10 challenges for flat earthers. Number 9, take some flights, like any direct flight in the southern hemisphere. Whoops, shouldn't that be impossible? Better yet, fly between two cities 2 different ways, the shortest way on the globe and the shortest way on the flat earth. Which one do you think will be faster? I'm just joking. I know that none of you will ever be employed long enough to afford a private jet.
Okay, this is coming from a guy who can't seem to keep a job long enough to get his master's and who spends 60 to 70 hours a week locking himself in his bedroom at his parents' house.
But through a bunch of bureaucracy, quite frankly, I lost that job and along with it, the funding for my master's program. So I had to withdraw yet again from the master's program.
Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
I lost that job and along with it, the funding for my master's program. So I had to withdraw yet again from the master's program. I sit literally in this room like 60 to 70 hours a week. I sit literally in this room like 60 to 70 hours a week.
You shouldn't cast stones when you live in a glass house there, DUMBdave. Okay, so he's saying take a flight and see which one is shorter on the globe Earth or the flat Earth map, okay? Well, Professor DUMBdave, they are both the same. The only difference is they tell you that you're flying around a globe and they show you a curved flight pattern on the so-called globe. But once you convert that flight pattern over to the flat Earth map, you will find out that it's a perfect straight line. And I'll use a couple flights here just to show you how that works.
But I noticed something strange while booking my Asian getaway. My plane seems to be making a detour over Alaska. Why is my plane going out of its way to avoid the Pacific Ocean? Is this a mistake? Did I accidentally sign up for the Caribou route? At first, you might think this was a safety issue. The Pacific is the largest and deepest of the world's oceans. If a plane encounters a problem over a seemingly endless and bottomless pond of water, the pilots are going to have a rough time finding a safe spot to set her down. Alaska might not be overpopulated with international airports, but it's a lot better than the middle of the ocean. How's that for a tourism slogan? Alaska. At least it's better than sinking.
Now, let me show you the real true reason why we have to fly over Alaska just to get to Asia. Check this out. Now, here's the flight pattern on a globe. The guy leaves Seattle, Washington, flies over Alaska, kind of curves around the so-called globe and lands in Asia. Okay. Now, if you still don't get it, let me break it down to you this way. On a globe map, all the pilot had to do was leave Seattle, Washington, fly straight across the sea to Asia, which would have been the shortest route. Fuel-wise, whatever you want to call it, that would have been the shortest route. But he can't do that because it's impossible. Now, let me show you why he takes the route that he takes. Now, let's have a look at the same route on a flat Earth map. Okay, here we have the United States, the west coast of the United States. Here we have Asia, which is where the guy went. Well, look what's right in between. Alaska. So if you leave here, go into Asia, guess where you're going to fly across? Alaska. Let me zoom in on the map so you guys can see just a little bit better here. As you can see right there, Alaska, right in between Asia, and the United States. Now, let's put a marker on there so you guys can see it's a straight line, straight across, and Alaska is right in between. So as you can see, they don't choose to fly that route. They have no choice but to fly that route. Now let's check out a flight from New York to Moscow, Russia. Okay, now if you look up the flight pattern on Google Maps, it will show you a route leaving New York, going through the tip of Canada, then through the tip of Greenland, then through the tip of Iceland, through Sweden, and then into Moscow. Now let me zoom in on this map so you guys can see that better. Like I said, it leaves New York, goes through the tip of Canada, through the tip of Greenland, through the tip of Iceland, over Sweden, and then into Moscow. Now, doesn't that strike a little bit awkward with you guys? I mean, anybody with common sense knows that the fastest route between A and B is in a straight line, as we see here. I mean, you do not have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. It's common sense. From point A to point B is a straight line that will always be the fastest and shortest route. So anyways, on a globe, this would be your shortest route from New York to Moscow. But instead, this is the route that they give you. Now, I'm going to show you why they take this route. Let's go to the flat Earth map. Now, check out what you have to pass to get from New York to Moscow on a flat Earth map, a straight line. Check this out. The edge of Canada, the edge of Greenland, straight over Iceland, straight over Sweden, and into Moscow. Imagine that. There you go. Now it makes sense. The flight pattern makes total sense on a flat Earth map because it has to go straight across those countries to get to Moscow. Now, I'm assuming Professor DUMBdave doesn't know this one because he's not familiar with the flat Earth map or how it works. Therefore, debunking the first part of Professor DUMBdave's challenge. Now, let's move on to the second part of the challenge.
But next time you're on a regular plane, notice that flights going east or west are not constantly turning slightly to one side, as you seem to believe they all must be. Yeah, you would notice that. If humanity is unfortunate enough that you've actually procreated, send your kid up to the cockpit to meet the pilot and snap a pic of the wheel. What do you know? Straight as an arrow.
Well, of course the wheel would be straight as an arrow. So let's help educate Professor DUMBdave as to why that is. And as in doing so, we will also teach him how the compass works on the flat Earth map so he will understand how the wheel stays straight.
Down here we have what looks kind of like a compass. It acts kind of like a compass, but it's not a compass at all. It's called a directional gyro, and it can be synced with the magnetic compass, which is on the dashboard, and it can be used for sort of aiding in headings and heading holding. The mag compass, as trusty as it is, sometimes is a little unreliable. It bounces around in there, so this is an easier way to see what heading you're flying and holding headings. In this case, it actually gives you a digital readout of the current heading you're holding, which right now we're just a little bit north of west. We're at 276 degrees. Of course, 270 is a west heading.
Now, in order to understand this, first you have to understand how magnetism works. For example, right now this compass is pointing to the true North Pole. But let's see what happens to the needle on the compass when I alter the magnetic field. Bam! That's the same thing the North Pole does. It automatically pulls that needle to it. So now this magnet is our North Pole. Now I've already magnetized the center of this flat Earth map by placing a magnet in the center of it, which will automatically pull the needle of the compass to the center of the map, which will be the North Pole. Now let me show you one more time how the needle of the compass is pointing to the real true North Pole right now. But watch when I drop it to a smaller scale. Watch where the needle automatically points to. The center of the flat Earth map, the North Pole. Now let's watch as we go east around the flat Earth map. Notice the E stays in the direction that we're moving the compass, which is east, and the needle stays fixed on the North Pole. Now let's show you an example of a flight right here. Let's say we're going from Dubai to Asia. Okay, now let's do a flight from Asia to California. Okay, now let's go from California to Europe. Now you notice how the compass pointed east all the way around the flat disk Earth to each one of those destinations? That's because the magnetic North Pole will always be pulling the needle of that compass to the center of the map. And Professor DUMBdave is trying to tell you that in order to do this, you would constantly have to be veering the plane to the left. Now, yes, you would have to veer to the left a slight bit if you were circumnavigating the whole disk, but that's not the case. We're talking about from flight to flight. On each flight, you're going to set your coordinates, and the plane is going to follow that coordinates, which is going to be in a straight line. Now, say, for instance, this flight from California to Europe. You wouldn't make a veer to the left during that flight because you would already set your coordinates, and it would be in a straight line. The wheel of the plane would be straight all the way there. And it would be the same if you were flying west, as you can see here, going from Europe back to California. As you notice, the compass is pointing west, with the needle still pointing to the North Pole. And you go back the other way, it points to the east. So Professor DUMBdave is trying to convince you that from going from east to west, that you would be veering to the left, and going from west to east, you would be veering to the right constantly. But that's not the case at all. As you can see here, once you set that coordinates from one destination to the other, it's a perfect straight line, which means the steering wheel of the plane will stay straight all the way there.
Notice that flights going east or west are not constantly turning slightly to one side, as you seem to believe they all must be.
No, Professor DUMBdave, you seem to believe they must be. And I just showed you with common sense that that is not the case at all. Therefore, come on everyone, say it with me, debunking Professor DUMBdave's number 9 challenge. And that will bring us to the end of episode number 8. Everyone be sure to join me in episode 9 as we debunk Professor DUMBdave's last challenge out of the 10 challenges. Everyone, thanks for watching. Have a good evening, and God bless.
All I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.